just shut out his lights to sit there discreetly and stealthily, and then pulled me over the headlight out. So, anyways, but it was Brother Levi, and he goes, "Oh, hi, Pastor. How you doing?" So, anyways, thing is, I wiggled the wire the other day because the headlight was out. I knew it. I wiggled the wire, came right back on, and I guess it unwiggled. So, all right. What on earth did I do now? You did anything wrong. All right. 487. 487. Down there, and Lord, the things that were a challenge and blessing to them, and so many good reports, and how you're working down there in the midst of those people that have been, in one way, not always got a fair deal throughout history. Lord, but know for years they have served the devil, and Lord, how you're shining the light amongst that culture, and Lord, souls are being saved, lives are being changed, young men are being called to preach, and Lord, you're doing an amazing thing down there. Lord, I pray that as we hear and see some of that, Lord, that you would stir in our hearts, Lord, a zeal for our community and also our missions, and Lord, I pray that you just meet with us tonight. All these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. We're going to do some announcements and then one more song tonight. And Brother Lewis, I told Brother Lewis, let's try to keep it to this long. He goes, "Oh, it won't be that long, Pastor." And I'm like, "We shall see." We shall see. I said, I always think I've got less material than what I got, and usually ends up going about 15-20 minutes longer for me than what I think, but maybe I'm the only one affected with that. But I tend to think one of that he usually goes a little longer than he anticipates. Yep, that's what I thought. So I got a second motion, can I have a third? We'll just have a business meeting.
Dismiss.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. I'm excited. Like I said, years ago, probably when I first got here, actually before I got here as pastor, the first time I preached for Pastor Love, I remember him talking just very very excitedly about the drawing a blank. What's their last name? Haynes. I'm thinking of Mark and Joel, but I couldn't remember his last name. The Haynes family down there in the Navajo Nation, and this is going back probably 8 years now. The church there at Anchor went down every winter. I think most winters, I don't know if it's every winter, but a lot of winters they would go down for a missions trip in the wintertime. And I think sometimes, maybe another time of the year, because I think I remember him saying they either have vacation Bible school in the winter or they were there for vacation Bible schools. And I remember Pastor Love just speaking so highly, so excitedly about what was going on down there. What a good family the Haynes family was, and the dad and the boy, and I think actually one time I think another one of the brothers was there, but I think he may be the one that's over in the other side of the globe now. But anyways, that name stuck in my mind, the ministry stuck in my mind, and then Pastor Shiflett had Brother Joel Haynes out for missions conference this year, and man, he preached 7 or 8 times. Just every message was fantastic. And I know a lot of what he preached wasn't necessarily on missions. He was, as Pastor Shiflett said, brother, he hit everything that moved in the auditorium. I mean, he was just preaching to the teens, he was preaching to the older folks, he was preaching to the middle aged, he was preaching to those in the ministry. I mean, he was just hitting everybody. And Lord willing, he'll be with us for fall revival next year. And but Keith and Wanabed took a little journey down there and spent a number of days down there amongst those people. And got to meet Brother Jimmy, who we all got to meet and be blessed with. So he's going to go ahead and share some of that tonight. And just 2 quick announcements. This Friday at 6 o'clock is our adult Christmas party here at the church. Always an exciting and fun time of the year. Good food, good fellowship, and just a lot of good time. And then the following Friday at 7 o'clock, a little more formal than ours, will be the Berean Baptist Church Christmas concert. They do, I think it was candlelight last year, wasn't it? Maybe it wasn't. Yes. Was it candlelight? I thought it was candlelight. It was kind of hoity and toity both. And the food was great. And there's nothing wrong with it. You know, there's nothing wrong with candlelight. You know, us rednecks need a little bit of refining every once in a while. About once a year does us good. And so that's next Friday at 7 o'clock down there in Ogden. Can you pray for Pastor Jerry Ross? I've been texting him some this week. I intended to call him today, and I did not get that accomplished. But we exchanged about probably 8 or 9 texts today. He's actually preaching in Durango, Colorado. And he finishes up tonight. He's been there since Sunday preaching. And I said, well, brother, being here in the neighborhood, plus or minus 12 hours, why don't you just swing on by and I'll have you preach Sunday? He said, brother, don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. He said, I've been gone for 2 Wednesdays and a Sunday. Now, if I don't get back to church, they're gonna vote me out. And I said, well, brother, just that happens, and I'll just be your assistant, and you can just come here, you know. We were laughing and stuff, but he sent me some pictures, and I'll just share this because it was so funny. He sent me some pictures of his grandpa from like 1948 to 1960 some. Would every year go to Gunnison, Colorado, to a ranch and go mule deer and elk hunting and take the family. And when Pastor Ross's mother died, he came across these old black and white photos. I mean, this primitive log cabin, I don't know, maybe it was just an outbuilding, no chinking, you know, roof and eave all like this, meat pole out there. I mean, these whopper, thick dark horn muleys laying there. I don't know that I've seen any. I think I did see one raghorn bull in the pictures. He said for years his grandpa went there, and he said he was going to take tomorrow. I think he's flying back out of Denver, but he's going to take tomorrow and drive up to that place. And so I Googled it real quick, and when I'd originally looked at Durango, it said 12 hours to Durango. Well, then I Googled Gunnison, and it said 11 and a half. And I said, well, brother, you're actually going to be half an hour closer, so the Lord's really in this. And he goes, I'm driving 4 hours, and I'm only a half hour closer? So I looked up Durango again. Evidently, when I checked Durango the first time, routing down through Salt Lake, it must have been rush hour or something. It had it down at 12 hours, now it was 11 hours and 15 minutes. I said, brother, you're actually 15 minutes further away, 14 miles further, going to Gunnison, even though he's pretty much north of where he's at. But he showed me the thing, and it had 2 routes, and they both went like this, to Gunnison. I'm sure out around a mountain or something like that. I said, this is the way it is out here, you know. Hey, so what I really want to check is see if my mother was a serial killer. And he had a black and white photograph of his mother, 13 years old, sitting there, and I'm guessing relatives, siblings, something, probably about 5 or 6 other little young kids, all younger than her. And in front of them on the ground was like probably 9 human skulls. And I tell you what, I don't think they were Halloween decorations. I think they were the real deal. And I said, man, how things have changed. Like, yeah, let's go on a hot trip with the family. Here's a vacation. Let's play with some human skulls. They aren't real, but, you know, they can't complain. So I said, this was like, it was hilarious. So anyways, nothing spiritual about that, but I get a kick out of it. All right, one last thing. I'll try to read this Sunday so everybody can hear. Dear Mountain Valley Baptist Youth Group, just wanted to write and thank you for the thoughtful card and gift card you gave me, the Empowered Youth Conference. What a blessing. It was an honor to see you all, and thank you for my Pastor Modesty badge. I don't know what that's about. My wife didn't know. Any of you kids know what that's about?
Liberty.
Oh, okay. And not that Pastor Burke was exceptionally modest. I think it means he was modest, like humble, I think.
They call preachers by what they have heard them preach on.
Oh.
And they call him the modesty preacher because he preaches on modesty. Like they've heard, that was the first thing they...
Oh, okay. All right. So I guess I was wrong. My assessment was wrong. Pastor Modesty badge. Loved it. Love you all. Keep serving our Lord. Pastor Travis Burke, Psalms 40, verse number 8. I heard he did a fantastic job preaching and challenging the teens. All right. One last thing tonight. One last hymn. 465. Good title for getting pulled over tonight. Sooner or later. You laugh now, sooner or later it's going to be you. All right?
And we'll kind of do them, you know, together. I'll just have some explanation of the slides.
Okay.
The different churches and pastors and then things that I've seen. How do you turn this thing on?
What's that?
Well, he handed me a to get all the electrified here.
Electrified.
Is this supposed to not?
Yeah, it should be. It should be.
Mine
Yeah, it's on.
hear something, I don't know. Is it on, Mike? Any sound?
That's Keith, actually.
I don't hear much. Any sound?
You're good. You're good to go.
All right. Now, you're going to do the... yeah. Well, let's see.
This front row of lights on for you, I guess, so you can see.
Well, whatever works with the lights. I've got some big print here. In getting ready to do this, actually my wife did most all of it. And I want to encourage you guys to really be careful in your selection of a soul meet. You pick the right one and a special one, and they'll do you good all your life. and they'll kind of fill in the cracks. If your vision gets bad and you can't see very well, they'll do things that you can't do, and and be a great help and a blessing. And of course, the reverse is true for these gals too. Can you imagine? You fellows think about this: being a young lady, and you eventually say, "I will," and you get up to the altar and say, "I will," and "I do," but you face that, and you think about, now, he's going to be my head. Sometimes he's a jerk. Probably. You probably will have seen him be a jerk a time or two. And yet you know that that's what the Word of God teaches for a wife to be, to have a head. And the Word of God is real strong and clear about authority. You know, I may wander way astray on some of this, but I was just thinking about what I might say tonight. And since the young people are here, we would maybe want to gear it for them. You know, in the church, the Lord Jesus Christ is the head of the church. Then the under-shepherd, the pastor. Then the congregation. That's God's order. And then in the home, it's the husband, father, the wife, and the children. And in our culture today, you know, we see all sorts of things a lot different. Some churches are run by the congregation, some by the deacons' boards, and some by a group of ladies. And it's not according to God's will. And then, of course, we have had the women's lib for, is it decades now? And we see where that's getting us and where that's going. So you young people, you need to pick. I was thinking about it. You want to pick from the top shelf. All right? And you may meet some people and you think, well, oh, she's just way up there. Well, maybe God wants to grow you a little bit, and eventually maybe you'll be there. And the same way for the young ladies. Pick a guy that you think is, wow. And then maybe you can keep thinking that as if you go through life with him. Hopefully that you would. Well, we got to thinking about going down there to the reservation, and we thought about trying to do it after Thanksgiving, and then we began to think of the climate, the season coming on to us. It would be too late to use a camper. It was almost too late anyway. It was freezing water hose down there and stuff at night. The night you got 13 above here, it was the same temperature down there. The elevation's a little higher, about 6,300, and it's a little further south, but doesn't seem to be that much for climate. They get snow there in Grenada, where we headquartered, but it doesn't stay on very long. A little further east, 20 miles, there's sort of they call it a summit, and you just go up into a treed area and then go on over to Gallup. And they say the snow stays on there more. And that's a treed area, I think, because of the snow and moisture, perhaps. On the reservation, there used to be some logging. There's some areas where they could do that if they do it profitably, leaving the young trees to grow up and continue. But the tribal elders got concerned that they're taking our trees. Well, they do use a lot of wood for fuel for winter heat. And so they closed it down. But they were, I think Jimmy said they were employing about 300 people with that logging operation, maybe cutting timber poles. I'm not sure what all they did with it. But perhaps the reservation people maybe weren't the ones that were profiting. Maybe it was some bigger company had come in, whatever. So they don't use that resource much except for heating. And the one at Granada where we first went and spent a lot of our time, where our camper was, the assistant pastor there is a great big 220 to 250 pound Navajo guy. And when he's not, he's a drywaller, and he'll work at anything, concrete or whatever. But when he's not busy at that, then he goes out and cuts firewood, and he can take it to the chapter houses. The chapter houses are like a city hall out in the different communities, and they usually have water. They will, like from Brother Jones, they'll buy his load of wood or cord of wood, whatever he gets at a time, and perhaps stockpile it and perhaps sell it out or provide it for the people that need it. The people are very poor as an average. There are jobs out there. There's schools, hospitals, some nice shopping places, but there's not enough of those, what you'd think of as good jobs, to go around. A lot of the people are on Social Security. I'm not sure how much assistance they get, like from the federal government, or if they do at all. The reservation does get aid and help from the federal government. They're not a sovereign nation as maybe some reservations are. They operate, the reservation supplies a lot of stuff, and then the federal government supplies also a lot of stuff to try to meet the needs of the people. The water is very scarce there. And if you look it up on a map, you'll see it's up in the north, to the north of the reservation, goes into Utah, and then it goes east over into New Mexico, probably 30, 40 miles. It's roughly 27,000 square miles. Now you could think of a rectangle 270 miles across, 100 miles deep. But the edges are sort of uneven. They jog around. The Hopi reservation is within that reservation. And on the bottom then, down in the toward the southeast corner, is the Zuni reservation. It runs clear up to the Four Corners area of the 4 states that corner. It doesn't run into Colorado. That reservation area is a Mountain Ute reservation. And so far I don't know that the Haynes have got anything going up there as far as hopes of starting a church. I think the Utes were more warlike. The Navajo were more of a peaceful, nomadic type people. They wanted to stay in their homeland, but the government thought they would be assimilated into American culture, society, if they would move them out and kind of try to break up their way of life, teach them farming. I think they moved them to some place in Oklahoma. And this was in about 1863. Kit Carson was given or assigned, or he took the job. Some people say he took it because he thought he could do it in a friendlier way than maybe some of the other people that might have been given the job. Some of the Army officers probably hated maybe most all Indians and would have been even harsher. But they were cleared out, and their last canyon was Canyon de Chelly, and that's just north of Granada a little ways. And it was a place with peach orchards and other orchards, and at that time I think they had more water in it. It was a favorite spot. Well, the Indians that wouldn't move, wouldn't go, they just shot them. They burned and destroyed all the buildings, the orchards, and moved the people over there to a different spot, about as dry, about as barren, not suitable for farming. Eventually, they let them return. And so that's in their history of being dealt with by our government. Let's start this. Have you got a picture here? Ganado Baptist Church. We got there, we left on a Friday. We'd had a big day Thursday, got repair on the camper and loaded and traveled Friday, got down there Saturday afternoon, evening, about 6, maybe 6:30. Pulled in by the church building, stopped, and we could see that we were at the right place, and didn't see anybody, but there was a lot of cars. So I went to the door of the church. I could hear something going on in there. Opened the door. They were having a preaching service. It was the Saturday evening. They were going to preach 2 men for their missions conference. So, of course, I shut that door because there's a side door. Their building is long like this. The platform, say, is over there, except it's on the north side. And there's a door on the east and a door on the west. Well, I went back out, and the assistant pastor came out and helped get us parked. And we grabbed our Bibles and went in our blue jeans, in my blue jeans. And got to hear the next preacher. He's a fellow from, I think, Amarillo. Chapman? Is that his name? Can you hear me? Hardly. All right. And he preached a message about like Brother Hutchinson had here. And then it ran on into Sunday. And the church building was fairly full. And they were doing their faith promise. And you want to remember that that's a very poor group of people financially, and they were pledging right next to 90,000 from that individual church, and the churches altogether runs up around 200,000. Now that's faith promise to support missionaries, and they may support some of their missionaries on the reservation with some of that, but probably most of it goes out. Just like our faith promise goes out around the world. So that's where we got there. And let's go to another. And this is just some scenery on the reservation. We'll have quite a few of that type of thing. The reason this isn't a great cattle growing area is that they don't have water. We'll see a windmill pretty soon, and it's like we used to have in Nebraska. The tank will be maybe 10, 15 feet tall, maybe 20 feet across. It'd hold a lot of water if you could ever get it full. The lead pipe comes in at the top to fill it up. In Nebraska, our tanks or troughs would be about 2 feet tall or deep, and maybe 20 feet across, whatever, or maybe several tanks with bottoms. Anyway, in Nebraska, you could drill a well most anywhere, 30 to 50, 100 feet deep, and set up your windmill and just get water. It was easy to drill and so forth. Down there, in most of the places, they can't get wells, but they do have some spotted windmills around. In the communities, they do have wells, and you'll see up on the raise at the edge of the town, there'll be a great big tank, and that's a water tank for the town. About 30 or 35% of the households do not have running water. It means they're hauling water in a trailer tank or a pickup tank, and they've got to go somewhere, usually pay something for the water, haul it, and they don't hardly run any cattle. Each family can maybe have some sheep if they live scattered around out on the reservation, but just 30, 40 is considered a pretty big bunch of sheep. And you've got to maybe haul water for them. And they'll come to your house for their water at least once a day. And they have some dogs, and people take care of them. The hay is very expensive. We would see hay, like if we went to Gallup, maybe you get near town, here on a little side area is a semi or a big gooseneck pulled in, loaded with baled hay, and the guy is there ready to sell you a bale for you to take home to give treats to your sheep or your horse if you have horses. And so it's just really, the grass out there looked like it would grow about like our BLM does. It depends on the rain you get. It's maybe 6 to 18 inches tall, not very thick, some sagebrush and other brush and so forth. But it would graze cattle if you had water. And of course, through the winter time, you'd have to be supplementing them with some protein supplements and maybe a little hay to get through the winter. Ranching could be done if they had water, but they just really don't. There was a lawsuit that the tribe brought against, or to the Supreme Court, in a sense against our government. Something to do, I think, with the Colorado River. And maybe they were hoping to get some of that Colorado River that comes along out of Colorado and down through Utah and through the Grand Canyon and then clear on down by Yuma, getting some of that water directed to them. But that case was, I think, run through this last summer. And of course they lost. It's like you go to their court against them and you'll probably lose. And maybe they had no case, I don't know. But the water is very, very scarce. This is Solid Rock Baptist Church at Nazlini, Arizona. And what did we do there? Was that Monday night? All right. They were having a service there Monday night, and we went. And then let's go on to number 4. This is Canyon de Chelly, and I don't know whether that's a French pronunciation or what. Took me a while to, after reading the map, to get on to trying to pronounce that. And I think we'll have some more. This is a hogan. That's the type of native house that they had used for maybe centuries. And to me, I think they were 6-sided. Maybe some of them were 8-sided. They could be built with shorter logs, and that roof kind of domed up. We got to invited in about Tuesday of that first week, 2-1, and got to sing in it to a 90-year-old lady that her daughter comes to the church at Granada and invited us to come out there, and so we got a chance to do that. Jimmy told us that that was the second time he'd been invited in to a hogan. And so we felt kind of honored, or he expressed the fact we ought to feel honored that we just show up and in a couple of days we get that opportunity. I think you see a little stovepipe sticking out the top. Well, there's some type of wood-burning stove in the middle, and it isn't very far from that stove to all of the walls. So wherever you're at in the wintertime, you're not too far from the stove. And you'd probably have one warm side and one colder side. But that lady was 90 years old, and her other daughter was there also. who I think is also a Christian. And they had been able to lead that lady to the Lord. They told us they didn't think that she could understand English. And that's a situation with some of the older Navajos. They still don't understand English or very well. There's one church, it's not one that is connected directly with the Haynes group, that is a Navajo speaking church. In other words, the pastor speaks it, preaches it, they sing all their songs in Navajo. And we were at several churches, but one, the pastor said, he's assistant pastor for Brother Joel at his church, and the second Sunday that we went up there, he was the one that led the whole service. He could speak English quite well, and he said he had worked about 30 years up here in southeast Idaho working for the railroad. I think he worked like on track crews, keeping the tracks up. And he would read. He had what really helped my wife. He had a board here, a whiteboard, and had his outline on it in English, and she could read that. I was back a little ways, and I couldn't read it. So she had that outline, and he would give a scripture in English and read it. Then he would say about one sentence in English. Then he would preach in Navajo. And in that church, Brother Joel, he preaches all the time in English. It wasn't that the people wouldn't understand the English. It's just that he couldn't preach in English to any extent. My wife got quite a little out of the service. I didn't get too much, except the verses were good, went along with the topic and so forth. But the younger people have been in government schools and have pretty good education. And many of them do not speak Navajo anymore. So the whole tribe is gradually getting sort of over into English so that they'll be able to communicate and get along better in a sense. One thing about that Hogan, the door always faces east, and I think they'll have maybe one window in it. But for some reason, the Navajo are very superstitious people, and that having that in the east is part of it. It's, in a sense, the only thing to do, the only way to have it. And I don't know if they always get west winds. To me, that would make sense, but they have some superstitious things. Let's go on to, here I'm out. Jimmy took us to a place where we could pick up some petrified wood. And later we went down by the petrified forest and stopped at a place, and they had great big boulders of it put all around, and kind of a tourist place all made up. But of course you couldn't carry any of them off even if you could pick them up. But we've got some in here in a little box, and they were just scattered around, and I got some bigger than maybe a big apple. I mean, it's a pretty good chunk. And then he also gave us a little package of Navajo pottery, and I meant for us to bring it, but we didn't get it brought. The pottery, he said, now don't let any of the Navajos see that you have that, because they don't like stuff like that being packed off their reservation. Probably they're not creating anymore, and if everybody packs off a bunch of stuff, pretty soon it'll all be gone. And so they didn't, we didn't show it around that we had it, but we did bring it home. It's fairly thin. And it's just pieces that we have. Next, we've got more What have we got here? Okay. All right. And yeah, I can't tell you much about that you can't see. Right. All right. They're looking down off a lookout point into that canyon. All right, I got to turn my page to keep up. And let's go to the next one. I think we've got several showing some of the rock formations and maybe looking off down in that canyon. Yeah. Jimmy would point out some areas, and with our binoculars we could see some little holes in the rocks. And he thought that those were like cliff dwelling places that the Navajo had used. But I wasn't sure that we saw necessarily any what you'd really call cliff dwellings. There are some around on that reservation, farther probably southwest than what we got.
Is that on the reservation there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's that water down there?
Well, if you actually see water, it's where there used to be a waterway down in that bottom of that canyon. And I don't know as we saw water. There was some green grass and trees and stuff down in the bottom there. And that canyon ran on east. I don't know how many miles, whether it be 20 miles or 30, from where we were. And when we got back to the vehicle and maybe moved a little bit, here was a band of sheep. And there was an Indian fellow there. I asked him how many sheep he had. I think he said he had 34. And one of the ladies in the church has a band of sheep, and Jimmy said now her sheep are kind of preferred by all the people around for eating. And like if you're going to have a big family get together, maybe you'll pool your money and go and buy one of her sheep for $200, which for them that's a lot of money. Maybe it is for a sheep here, I don't know. What's a sheep worth? Sheep man. I put him to sleep. Do you know what a sheep is worth? If you were going to sell a sheep, say I wanted to buy a full-grown ewe, what would it be worth? Couple hundred. Well, maybe it's about the same then. And she would slaughter it and I think skin it, she and her family, and then the people could come pick it up. In the stores, I saw some packages of mutton chops. It looked kind of like cheap quality pork steak like we used to buy in Nebraska once in a while. And it'd be like $13 a pound there in the stores down there. They do have some nice stores scattered around, but the mutton wasn't cheap. So he seemed, not necessarily proud of his sheep, but he's happy with him, that herder. And this turned into a little video. And usually there'll be some dogs around. I'm not sure how they control the coyotes. There are coyotes around, some predators. Here we get to a place that's it's Willow Rock. You see the hole in the rock up there. That is east of Granada, and it's right on the I believe it's right on the state line of Arizona and New Mexico. And it's the capital of the reservation. So the reservation president guy, he lives there. This is a statue put up to commemorate the code talkers of World War II that were important in the South Pacific in dealing with the Japanese. The Japanese were good at decoding and understanding what was being said on the radios between the armed forces over there, but they never could decode the Japanese or the Navajo. And so they would have these Navajo guys scattered around through the services over there, and they could communicate and talk, and the Japanese never did get it figured out. So they were important men in that conflict, and they were honored, but Jimmy said that the last of them have passed away from World War II. And let's see, we got a picture of us there. And then that's out north of Window Rock. And we should be, yes, there it is. That's a big formation called Shiprock. And that's still, I think, in Arizona, but it's up near the Utah state line. And it's just out there. In other words, there's not a lot of other formation right near it. You just, all at once, there's this big rock that didn't erode away, or it was pushed up however God wanted to have done it. They said that the Navajo, some used to climb it, but they've restricted that. And to say that nobody ever does it, I wouldn't know for sure, but it's not something that's encouraged, at least. Then our next one, this is a little church out at Indian Hills Baptist Church. This is down south toward the very south edge of the Navajo Reservation by Holbrook, near Holbrook. Indian Hills Baptist Church. And that little building there, I think you can see the tongue for a mobile home on this end of it. And it was a single wide. And the pastor that I think we've got some pictures of coming up here, he and his 3 kids, I believe, and wife lived in that 5 years as a single wide without water and without electricity. And they're now living in Holbrook, have a nice modern home. She is part Navajo, and he's a white guy with red hair and red beard, and he's a silversmith. And he brought out some of his jewelry work that he had made, and he made this one right here for me. It's a layered thing that I asked him how he does it. And, well, he cuts out the one little thin layer. You can cut it out and leave the crosses, and then he silver solders that on a silver background, and then he puts on the turquoise setting. And I'm not sure what he does to make the little kind of little rope design edge for it. And he made that while we were down there, and then the church at Ganada gave it to me the last night we were there. We were there a Wednesday night service, and then we left Thursday of that third week. And very well-behaved children. The one little guy, if you had a picture of him, there was wanting me to see his boots. And he showed me well, they have a zipper on the inside. And the pair I was wearing is like that too. So I don't know whether he was happy to know I had zippered boots or not. I don't look on zippered boots as being hardly authentic, but they were okay for him. And his name is Justin Barrett, the pastor there. And he plays the guitar a little bit. And I don't know exactly what they do for their church service as far as music, whether they have a piano and somebody that can play it. This next one, if you go to the next one, we see a few of them scattered around. If you drove around most all day, you'd maybe see 2 or 3. And they're in some spot where they were able to get a well. Evidently it's not too deep. In Nebraska, our windmills would work down to 150 feet or so. The ones we saw here were air motor mills, which is the good kind. And an 8-foot air motor can work a 2-inch cylinder to probably 150 feet, where you're bringing water from. If the water would stand in your well up a ways, well, all that would help. The closer the water, the bigger cylinder, and the more water you'll get. And if it was like Nebraska with the Ogallala Aquifer under it, why, they'd be running lots of sheep or lots of cattle and have one of these every half mile probably. But they don't. Then the next one is a church that's they're not really connected with the Haynes group of churches, but it's a Baptist church, and he's been there a long time. Neil Forrester has, it's called Bible Baptist Shepherd's Church. And yeah, I don't know what that is really. They have solar heat and what? Did you say something? Okay. They have solar heat, and it's piped through the floor. And he's a pretty technical guy. He was showing Jimmy all the stuff he had back in the mechanical room to make it all work. And I was more looking around, and it's probably a good thing. I mean, it saves them money to heat like that. The next one here, this shows a playground. They were given a bunch of playground equipment from a public school, and all they had to do was go get it and set it up. And then I believe this is Crown Point Baptist Church, where Pastor Aaron Nelson is the pastor. And Crown Point is, I believe, kind of northeast of Grenada. When I pronounce that word Grenada, I was always wanting to put an R in it, but there's no R. It's just G-A, Grenada. Here is pottery for sale in the Zuni Pueblo. Jimmy took us down there. He wanted us to meet 2 missionaries that have a church down on the Zuni reservation. And so he took us to some of these places where you could spend money if you wanted to and see some things. The next one would be a fancy saddle. Oh, well, not the next one. This is a white buffalo, and I think to all the Indian tribes, a white buffalo was almost sacred. And I looked it over quite a little bit. I thought, well, maybe it's a fake. Looked to me like maybe it could be made from sheep's wool or something. But then I saw the beard on it, looked pretty authentic, and I think it probably is a real one. I didn't price it to see just what it would take to buy it. This store was kind of a group of store buildings, and they were just loaded with jewelry, Navajo blankets, rugs, and all of that stuff is very expensive. If you got a real nice Navajo rug, it might be $2,000. And then you might be buying one of the cheaper ones. Yeah. We didn't bring any home. We have some rugs already. But I thought that was kind of neat. And there's the fancy saddle. And I don't know if the picture shows all that silver stuff on it. And I don't know whose saddle that was. I think I saw one time Buffalo Bill Cody's saddle somewhere, probably in Cody, Wyoming. But that probably belonged to someone. Probably was used in parades and so forth. This next shot is showing the Ganado Baptist Church, and you can see back on the back side of the church there's a little single-wide mobile home that's set there. That's where they have their Bible college, and the Bible college meets Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday nights from 6 till 10, and they have 2 or 3 classes each night. Pastor Mark and Joel and the son-in-law David, and he's got a whale of a name, his last name. We heard him preach a time or two. He's a Mexican fellow, and the people down on the reservation are sort of multicultural, we could say. Joel's wife is a Mexican lady, very talented on the piano, very personable and pleasant, very, very sweet, just really very sweet. And they've got 5 boys, Joel and his wife, and the oldest one is about 12 or 13. He's leading music, leading the singing in the church. They're planning to move that mobile home. This way would be south, and put it down on the edge of the property, and then build something there larger for the college, and use that as a dorm facility. Our camper, oh boy, well, maybe the nose of a pickup or something's there, and then behind that is kind of a old-fashioned log building that probably was there when they got the property. It's made out of kind of squared logs, about so, and they're fitted together at the corners, and that's presently being used. Of the families down there on that Zoni reservation church, those 2 missionaries, one of their daughters is coming up to the college. Lydia Herndon, and she's, pardon? Lydia Aaron. All right. It's the other family, Herndon. All right. Lydia Aaron. And she's probably 18 or 19. So she's up there at that church some of the time through the week. And then she stays in that little log building behind us there. You see horses along the side of the road occasionally, and usually they're not in very good shape. Jimmy says you could buy a horse for probably $50. Sometimes if the people are really hungry, they eat them, but they're not favored as food. They round them up occasionally, and the BLM people come and haul them off. The assistant pastor at Ganado, his last name is Jones, Darrell, and he's got a couple of boys Well, the oldest one might be Colton's age, maybe. And then the second to him, they're kind of cowboy types, and they go out horseback, and they run into some wild cattle. Well, the wild cattle run around and don't belong to anyone, and they try to rope what Jimmy calls the yearlings. I think it'd be spring calves now in the fall would maybe be called a yearling. And they rope it, bring it in, and Daryl can take it and sell it for a couple $100. Last Sunday I said, have you got any more calves? He said, yeah, we got 2. He said, we got one yesterday, and he said, we got up early, out there like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and we got one this morning. And he said, we've got 5. And they're thinking of keeping them, but they'll have to buy hay probably to keep them. So I don't know if they will, when things get tough in the winter perhaps. Let's see. This one is Stronghold Baptist Church at Pinion. And that is Brother Joel's church. I don't know how long he's been pastoring that, how long it's been there established. He's driving 70 miles from where he lives. He lives in a canyon, has a house, and a stream. And the Sunday we were there and he preached, he told his people that he was going to move over. He's going to sell, get rid of all that stuff he had, where he's living, and move over there, and probably they'll build or put something in there by the church for him to live in. They drive 70 miles, and he and his wife vans and go out and pick up people for their service. So, and then they have an afternoon service, is what they generally plan to do. And the Sunday we went there, and he was there, we thought we'd get to hear him preach morning and afternoon, and then be back at Granada for Sunday night. Well, they were going to go over to Tuba City to the Hopi reservation and do a joint service with them to try to kind of encourage them. And that was on across the desert, probably on, not just 2 tracks, they'd be graded probably. We had good road out there, good paved road, and then drive home at night, so we didn't do that. There's wild horses, there can be sheep and other animals that you might encounter on the road and so forth. Let's see. This is Elvira Wilson, who gave Beth one of her necklaces. I think you have it on? No, I brought it. She brought it. 2 different ladies gave her necklaces down there. And this lady is in the church at Granada, and her husband is still a medicine man. And if you were in Africa, you'd call them witch doctors. But basically, they're the same. If you would have a broken leg and your leg's not healing well, and your folks were sort of the native culture yet, or they might call the witch doctor, the medicine man over, and you'd have to pay him some money before he would do a chant or a potion or whatever he does to give you some healing, some help. And so he's not been saved. He'd have to give that up if he got saved. And maybe he's been looked up to in that position all his life. And maybe he's steeped in sin, as well as perhaps having been working with the devil and demons in it. If you go on your phone or internet, you can look up about the Navajo Nation, and they will give you videos and stuff concerning some of the stuff that goes on. And I've not studied those videos. I've studied some of the other videos and about the Navajo Nation, and they're informative and interesting. But the other stuff, it's there, but you know it's here too. Several years ago, Pastor Parrish wanted to give a tract to a lady working in one of the stores, and she said, "Oh, I'm wicked," and that's some type of Satanism or Satan church or whatever. So let's go on here. The next thing, this is an inside shot, I guess, of the Granada Church, and then this one is at the Hubble Trading Post. This is a well-known and historic trading post near Granada. It's still operating a little bit today. You can go in and buy a little bit of stuff. It's not full of stuff like that one where the white buffalo was, but there's kind of a watershed comes by, and that is kind of down on a low spot with that. And Jimmy said that sometimes there's water running by in a little stream there. And that fellow that established that was a well-respected trader. And the Navajos, he dealt fairly with them, and they respected him. And so it continued for a long, long time. Was there another picture of that? The next one, I think, shows some of the, there's a shot back in some of the, like the stables, some of the things that are still there. In the one little corral part of it, there was a horse there, an old guy, and they had some hay for him. He was probably being kind of pensioned out for the rest of his life. I don't know, Nick. Well, somebody might have worried about fire. They had running water and so forth in the other part of that, the store part. So it's been modernized a little bit. You know, it's not where I said it's historic. I mean, it was one of the real early ones with the Navajo, and but it's still being operated a little bit yet today. And then we get to, this is Old Paths Baptist Church at Fort Defiance. This is back up kind of in the northeast part of the reservation. Pastor Ryan Nez, and he also pastors a church at Newcomb, New Mexico. He has we went to the one on Tuesday night. He has his midweek on Tuesday night. And then at the other church Wednesday night. He is a pastor that the Berean Baptist at Ogden supports. And when we told the kids we were heading down there, why Chris said to say hello to him because he had been up to their church. He's a very sharp Navajo fellow. He had worked up through a series of jobs. He said Jimmy took us over there so that we could just visit with him and get his testimony. And so he visited with us for about an hour and a half, about 10:30 in the morning one morning. And he was beginning to do church work, had some Bible college training and so forth. But he had worked up through a series of secular jobs, and he was the reservation inspector on the whole reservation for natural gas or gas. And he would go to all of the hospitals, schools, just every place and check things out, make sure that everything was proper and right. Well, he got acquainted with a fellow from the Arizona State Department that was doing the same thing. And they would meet each other and see each other at different places. Well, just when he just decided to give up that job that he had with the reservation and go full-time as a pastor of the churches there. Probably that would involve maybe doing his deputation around the country and going full-time into Christian work. Well, that state guy shows up, presents him a contract to come and work for the state of Arizona. He'd have about half of the state of Arizona to go around and inspect all of their public buildings, hospitals, schools, anything that was government related. And have half of the state. He'd have a car given him, an expense account, and a home, and a 6-figure salary. Well, he saw it as the devil trying to keep him from doing what God wanted him to do. He said no, that he wouldn't do it, that he'd already given his resignation to that one job. So he's pastoring those two. Are we at the next shot with Pastor Nez and Brother Jimmy? Yeah. He shows Navajo just in color. You know, he's just a faint darker. Basically, up here you'd think, well, part Mexican, you know, maybe, whatever. But a real sharp guy. And Jimmy, he talks about the pastors down there. There's Pastor Mark, there's Pastor Joel, there's Pastor David, which is Joel's, Mark's son-in-law, Pastor Mark's son-in-law, and then Aaron Nez. Jimmy said that he's the fourth best preacher down there. And then Jimmy, I think, would come in there. There's a Navajo guy in the Ganada church that preached one night. And he's really a good preacher. He's probably 60 and had been saved maybe about 12 years. And he said, when we got saved, I got to talking with the pastor and so forth and figured out that we probably ought to get married, and did, you know, and just grew and grew and grew. And he's just really a strong Christian. You know, I talked about the assistant pastor at Ganada, Darrell, the good-sized Navajo fellow that one thing he did, I'm kind of jumping back here. I wasn't going to take very long, Pastor, but it was the first Sunday night that we were there after the service. He come back and he took this off his neck and put it around my neck, and I was sure surprised. These are Navajo's favorite stones, and I don't have any idea what it's worth. These, and like this one, they have a little lock back here on the back, and the cheap ones that I've had before, they don't have that, and they'll string down your neck and be lopsided. Well, there's a little lock on these, but I was going to say something about him. When he got saved several years ago, he couldn't read or write. He'd probably been in school a little bit, but very little. And but now he reads and writes, and he's. I think right now he's considering. I'm not sure what he's considering. Jimmy talked like he's praying about what God would have him do. He may take a church somewhere around on that reservation, but nothing was really hinted about it. Where that might be. The next one would be, I think, just a sunset out there on the reservation, out from Granada. And then we got down toward the end of our stay, and when we got to Granada, there was a missions conference going on, and then it lasted a couple more days. Then there was one over in a northeast church, and we went over there for their missions conference. And then we heard about the one down on the Zuni reservation. They were going to have a missions conference, and that was like 100 miles south or so from Granada. And we were thinking we could go down there and be there Monday, and then like to be there Tuesday. So we called a motel that we found on a back of a little brochure, and they were full, so we couldn't get a room. But they gave us a phone number of a RV camp close to the church that had cabins, and so I got to call and got to talk to a lady. She said, "Well, we're not there, but I'll just leave the key on the cabin door, and you can have it for Monday and Tuesday night." They were there and operated a cafe the latter part of the week, like Wednesday through Sunday. But we never did. We did see somebody coming to clean, but this little thing was only, I think it was 12 by 16 maybe, and built up kind of tall. I think you can maybe see the loft over the kitchen and the bathroom. So you just walk in, there's a bed, you can just get around it, and a little kitchenette and a bathroom and a loft. And good heat, and of course we didn't need air conditioning because it was cool enough weather, and everything worked. And that was down by El Moro, and that's a shot there. Those are of the El Moro National Monument that's close by that Mount Calvary Baptist Church where the missions conference was. And that's being pastored by two white families. The one fellow would get up and lead the singing. The other one would give the announcements, introduce the speaker. They had a fellow from Santa Fe, New Mexico, that came and preached the Faith Promise Missions Conference. And he had started several churches down there. He was an interesting fellow. We got to sit across. They'd have a meal after the preaching service every night, Monday night and Tuesday night. And we got to sit across from him the one night. And he told us what he had done to raise a little extra money. Over at Tulsa, Oklahoma, he's got a friend that can buy 1-year-old laying hens for 25 cents. So he equipped a trailer, covered trailer, and he goes over and he gives his friend 50 cents for 800 hens. Brings them back to his little, he calls it, we've got a little farm. And he's got a bunch of kids that each night he had some different kids with him. And he drove up from Santa Fe for that. But he said we made enough money, we'd sell them for $12 a piece. They were still laying, and of course he would have to feed them a while before he got them all sold, but they're laying eggs, which would pay for the feed, see? And he hauled 800 in that little covered trailer. He layered it, and I said, "Did you lose any?" "Yeah, lost just a few." And he's made several trips. So if any of you want to go in the hen business, I might be able to contact him and find out who that friend is in Tulsa. And you better have your chicken house ready, though, if you bring 800. that was Mount Calvary Baptist Church. And then I think we get to a shot on the way home, and we get some more. These things were just scattered all over. I mean, some of them had special names. And then the road we took, like when we started home, we went north into Utah until we could hit Highway 70. And 70 goes across to Denver. Well, we went west and would take 70 until we could get over and take a little cutoff road to 15. If you follow the interstate all the way, it'd be 80 miles further. You'd go down and back. And we didn't want to do that. But going across southern Utah, there's a lot of, what you might call it scenic. It's a lot of wasteland. Reminded me some of the South Dakota Badlands, some of it. But these are all taken off of one of Beth's phone, and she was able to send them over last night to Brother Renwick's phone, and then he was able to put them on here. And I think she took more than I took, but so I've got a bunch of this sort of stuff on mine, and some of the churches and people we met. We went to one of the Saturdays, Jimmy took us over to Gallup, which was east of us, on a Saturday, and they have a big flea market, and they come from all over. We parked and went down about a quarter mile, and there's just booze. They had everything. You could buy cooked roasting ears, Navajo fry bread. You could buy vegetables. There was a trailer backed up with used tires. You could just go along and look. We went down a quarter mile, and then we came back the other side. And we bought a few things. Just.
How much did a half dozen fleas cost?
What now?
How much did a half dozen fleas cost?
Well, I never saw any booth for those. I wouldn't have been surprised, but what you could have found some. Now, most of the people looked pretty clean, and I don't remember animals. There probably were some animals. I don't think we saw any sheep for sale, or they'd probably have some. I don't know. Wanda Beth, what can you think of that's some outstanding thing that I forgot to say anything about?
Not at all.
What?
You've done it all, Chad.
I've said too much, she's saying, I think. All right. Well, that's about the... Oh, yeah, there is some more. Yeah. The people down there in the churches were very friendly, very warm. And they, as Jimmy said, just ask them to tell you their testimony, how they got saved. They want to talk about getting saved and what God's done for them. Those people, many of them, basically have nothing, according to our standards. And yet, when they get saved, they've got peace and joy. And they're a child of the King. They've been adopted. And they've got hope for this life and for eternity. And it's something they've never had before. I think sometimes the Navajo would live in fear. Jimmy said they were very superstitious. If you see a coyote that's been hit on the road, if he's aimed the one way, as he's laying there, a Navajo won't go past. He'll stop, turn around, and go back. It'd be taboo to go on after passing that coyote if he's setting a certain way. So you see in their background, it's full of fear. The thing that impressed me too that I didn't mention is at Bible college. We would go to the sessions, sit in the back, take notes. Sometimes they'd have breaks about every hour and some refreshments, maybe a cupcake or something, some cookies. And but to sit in the back and see those 16 students sitting at tables, taking notes, and working in their books, with Brother Joel up there preaching and Brother Mark. It was just really impressive. And we find that they're doing the same thing down here at Pocatello. They've got a Bible college there. Mike Allison's doing the same thing at his church. He's got a Bible Institute. And they're sending out missionaries. And Brother Shiflett's getting a Bible college going in his church. And we don't have a Bible college here yet. But you know, one thing we do have, we've got preaching services. Sunday morning, Sunday school, Sunday night, Wednesday night. And that's just like a Bible college. Yeah. Now if you miss, you just miss. If you're here once a month, boy, you're not getting much. And there's so much that you're missing. So every time you can get here. I've heard some strong preaching about church attendance. And I firmly believe that if I'm not sick in bed, that it's a sin for me to miss a church service. He that knoweth to do well and doeth it not, to him it is sin. I know it's good for me to be here in church under the authority of the preaching of the Word of God. And if I don't do it, I've sinned. I know what's right. But if I don't do it, that's sin. All right? One verse is enough. And I think if you study the Bible, you'll find being in the house of God is part of assembling together with the brethren. And you get yourself helped, and you help everyone else. What if you came to church and you and your family was the only one that showed up? What would you do? You'd have church. Yeah. You'd sing some songs, you'd do a Bible study, and you'd go home. You would have had church. Everybody else missed. Yeah. Have you been there, Pastor? Where you were the only one that showed up? These Navajo pastors on the reservation, starting some little old church, they'll have some times like that. They and their families are the only ones that show up. But the doors are open and they have church. And maybe the next time some other folks come. But church is important. And I wanted to impress on you that for young people, Bible college is very important. Especially when you get ready to leave home. Now, if you get through high school and you stay with your folks for a year or two or whatever and get some maturity, that's one thing. But if you're going to go to a school, you better go to a Bible college the first year or two. Because that's where you get out on your own, sort of. And if you go out in the world is full. It's the enemy. And you're out among them. And their influence is on you. And if the Lord calls you to go to a secular school, you better be connected with a strong church right there in that place, that town. You better be connected with a strong Christian family, or you're going to have problems. Oh, you'll live, you'll get along, but your spirituality may go like this. And pretty soon maybe you don't even want to go to church. Yeah. Pretty sad. So, get some time spent in a Bible college where you're around Christian people, but you're still on your own, and you're sort of setting your own boundaries, but you have the godly and Christian influence and help, and you'll maybe survive. Now, did you hear the danger in that word maybe? Maybe you won't survive even in Bible college, because you can backslide there. You're studying the Bible, well, why read it? I mean, you know, you're using it in your classes every day. But growing up is a dangerous time. And a lot of people go shipwrecked. But the Lord is faithful, and He's long-suffering. And I probably said it all a couple of times. Thank you.
Just one last question. You went to a lot of different churches down there, most of which were attached to Brother Joel or his dad, Mark Haynes, or sounds like his son-in-law too, down there with one of them. But I mean, I get the impression they're not dead and dry and dusty.
No, they're lively.
Yeah. And kind of the reason why I got a soft spot, you can go ahead, thanks.
Okay.
Kind of the reason why I got a soft spot in my heart for this particular ministry is the testimony that I hear is Mark Haynes got saved, I want to say in his 30s. Had a family, and Keith would correct me if I'm wrong, but Mark Haynes, I want to say got saved in his 30s, had a family. God called him to the ministry. God called him to preach, called him to the ministry. He moved his family down there. Just like any missionary would move their family to Africa, China, Australia, any number of foreign countries, but he moved his family down there to this needy area, very needy area, spiritually needy, and following God's leadership, and for a number of years, sowed and sowed and sowed and preached and preached and preached for a number of years without a whole lot of fruit. It's a tough field. This is just going off of what his son, Brother Joel, talks about, and he grew up in that. And the reason why I say a soft spot, I wasn't here. I was not here for the years that some of you folks sowed and sowed and sowed with not a lot of results here. But now we're seeing results, and so are they down there. Yeah. And that's why I just feel like a connection with these people, even though there's a ways away, but the pattern of the ministry that his dad, Mark Haynes, went through was much the same as a period of years here in this church. Everybody doing what they knew to do, faithful, but not seeing a whole lot of fruit for a number of years. But now it's like the Lord just turned the water spout on down there, so to speak, not physically, still dry and arid climate, but turned the water spout on spiritually. And there's a lot of things happening amongst those ministries. And then like you said about the Bible college, for several years they would send anybody that was called to preach, anybody that had a heart for the Lord, send them off to a Bible college, Bible colleges, other places in the United States, and they got really tired of none of them coming back to help their people. And so they felt led the Lord to start a school down there, and these ones that have been graduating the last few years are plugged in at places down there, which is kind of a game changer. Brother Lewis.
Well, the last Monday we were down there, we drove down to that Zuni reservation, for their Monday night and Tuesday night service. And, but they had a funeral that morning at 10 o'clock at the Granada Church for a brother of one of the church members. And Brother Mark preached the gospel message, and they had 8 people saved.
Amen.
So the church people have a testimony, and that has the attention of all the people around.
Yeah.
I think the public school education there has got the younger generation looking sort of forward into being Americanized and away from the native medicine man culture. And so those younger ones are now being reached.
Yeah.
In our society, our educational system now is turning our young people away from God.
Yeah.
And away from spiritual things. So there's a difference there.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much for sharing that, and continue to pray. God's doing a lot of good things down there. And as we move forward, get closer to when Brother Haynes is with us in August, I'm sure we'll talk about it a little more. I'll try to have the website on Sunday. I forgot to look it up, but the website, they got a really nice website talking about these different churches down there and some of the things that are going on down there. Very well done. There's several videos on there you can click on and watch. And it's well done. It will give you, I challenge you, watch those videos and then tell me you can yawn through it. All right? Watch those videos. Everybody's like, oh, you say that? Yeah, I did. All right? All right? I know it's been a long night, Randy. All right? Watch those videos and tell me that they don't tug on your heart. I'll call you a liar. I will. Because if you ain't wiping tears away watching what God's doing down there, you better go to the clinic and get your pulse checked. Because it's exciting. It's exciting. And I hope maybe some of that spilled over